وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها. This is just to start the subject. I just recited this verse because it relates to the human soul and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfected it and created it in perfect form and then inspired in it right and wrong, good and bad. It was all inspired in the human soul by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the human soul has the ability to recognize good and bad. And then after that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. So the one who purifies it is successful, and the one who corrupts it is the unsuccessful or is the loser, you can say. Okay? So that's what it means. قَدْ أَفْلَهَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. So who suppressed it, who put it down, buried in the ground, anything, that is the meaning of dassa. We'll go into that later a little bit more when we talk about the subject. But as I said and I promised that we'll talk a little bit today about Imam Ghazali himself and then about the structure of his book and some notes in that regard, important notes in that regard. So let's start with Imam Ghazali. Imam Ghazali, I'll not go in detail in his and there's not much need for that. Imam Ghazali is a well-known personality and he is one of the early scholars of Islam, well recognized in the Islamic, you can say, in the Islamic history as a great scholar of his time. So that's not, I'm not going too much in his detail about him. Some just minor important things. First of all, he was born in 450 Hijri, which comes to 1058 Gregorian, and he died at the age of 55 in 505 Hijri, which is 1111 Gregorian. That's the period he lived in. So, as I mentioned last time, also 910 years exactly from today, from the present time. 900 years before. So this is he was in the 5th century of Hijri, very early. And he was born in a city called Tadran in the state or region of Tours, which is basically the area Khorasan, northeast of Iran. Anyway, the point is that he was born at that time, and his father died very early when he was still a kid, a very small kid. And he had another brother, Ahmed, and his father left him together, the two sons, with one of his very good friends who was a pious person. He left them and gave whatever he had, the money, and he gave them to him to take care of these kids. And he advised them to make them learn the deen, learn the religious knowledge. And he himself was not a religious scholar or alim, but he was in love with the ilm and the ulama. And the scholars, he used to love the scholars and listen to them. And his profession was a sort of trade, you can say, or a skill of making or spinning wool and making the threads from that, the wool. And that's why he is called Ghazali, from Ghazli. Ghazli means spinning the spin. And that was his profession, and that's why he was called Ghazal. And this is the trade. Yeah, so that's how then this friend of him, he spent his money, and soon it was finished. And he had to, advise these kids to join Islamic school, and then he joined it. So this is just a short from the beginning of his life. Then he became the top scholar of that time. He learned and And after that, like Imam al-Harabi, title, Imam al-Hasan, for Malik ibn Abi Muhammad al-Hizwaini. So we learned from him and other top scholars of his time, and he himself became a great scholar, and he was of a position in the Madrasa al-Nizamiyah, that is, you can say Islamic University at that time, and that's how he started his career, and soon he became very popular as a very honored, knowledgeable person. Now, this is the short. As I said, I'm not going into detail in the things, but to recognize his caliber of knowledge, that means he acquired all the fields of knowledge, and at that time, both the secular and the religious. So in the secular, for example, in falsafa and mantiq, and he became in each field that he entered, became, you can say, very highly skilled in that field and climax. And that's why in philosophy was at that time a great thing. People considered it to be a great field of knowledge, and he entered into it, and he became even the critic, and he wrote books about the objectives of these philosophers, maqasid al-falsafa, and he also then basically broke down and basically showed the weaknesses and the mistakes in their principles and in their philosophies. Anyway, so this is in short, and also in fiqh now. Coming to the Islamic knowledge, he became a great scholar of fiqh. So his book, he was Shafi in Madhab. So he wrote books which are very, you can say, classical and still considered as top books in the fiqh of Shafi, like his book Al-Basit and the book like Wajiz. And he wrote not only fiqh but also usul fiqh. And the book of usul fiqh, because usul fiqh between the Shafi and Hanbali, they are the same almost. So they are still considered as the top book for learning the usul al-fiqh. And I remember Shaykh al-Uthaymeen mentioning that this is the best book on usul, and any student of knowledge must try to read that book if you want to have a real depth in the usul fiqh, the principles of fiqh, or fundamentals of fiqh. So this is, in short, the thing. That's why I was mentioning this particularly, because to know that what he is writing, and again, another part I must also mention slightly, that after reaching the climax in the field of knowledge, and being recognized and honored by the people of his time, by the scholars of his time, he realized that he's missing something inside. It is all appeared to him as it's all just worldly name, fame, and everybody is in it. And he was feeling empty from inside, not close to Allah. And that's one where he left everything and then you can say in hiding. He left the city, Baghdad, and he went to Damascus and spent 2 years there, also just not engaging with the people, in solitude most of the time, and contemplating and basically making dhikr of Allah and pondering in the creation of Allah and all those things. And then when some people recognized him there, he also ran away from there and he went to Jerusalem and spent almost 10 years over there. And this is probably the period in which he has written this book, al-Ihya. Some of the scholars think that this is the period when he was spending his time there. And after that, he went to Hajj, and then from Hajj, he returned back to this town, and he was offered the position at that time from the ruler, the principal of the dean, whatever you call of that university, which he had left before, and that's how afterwards he spent the rest of his time. So this, in short, this is the reason why I mentioned these things, to understand that whatever he is writing with knowledge and experience. So he is not writing things just theoretical ideas, but he is writing things which he has experienced and has experienced after acquiring the knowledge. That means he is not can be misled in any way. So whatever he is saying is based on sound basis of knowledge and experience at the same time. So this is enough for Imam Ghazali, you can say, his background a little bit. Then I'll go to actually his book, Ihya, and he mentions why he wrote this book, the reason and purpose of writing the book, and how he has structured this book. So that's what I will talk now a little bit on that subject. Now coming to the subject or the structure of the book, he has actually mentioned, first of all, the purpose what he mentioned, that why he wrote this book, because he mentioned that he found that the people are running after the basically the knowledge and the knowledgeable, that is the ulama and the Uloom of deen. They have become very much restricted to the rules and laws of fiqh as it is known or it is understood in Islamic jurisprudence. So it has just become, the fiqh has become the Islamic jurisprudence, knowing the laws and the regulations and rulings on different matters. And this is also a sign, has become a sign of status and name and fame. So they are getting good positions at that time in various departments of the government, judges and advisors and so on. But he says that this is something which is only required for maintaining the, you can say, the law and order and maintaining and managing the affairs of the state. It has nothing to do with connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is so much involvement and it is so much fame and name in it that the person loses. I mean, he becomes involved in it and he thinks this is all which is knowledge. And this has become the focus and center of everyone's attention, that this is what is knowledge. Whereas the real knowledge of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing yourself and getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and into the path of the hereafter, approaching. So this is adopting the path which goes to Jannah and to the pleasure of Allah, and avoiding things that make that would lead to the hell and to the displeasure of Allah. This is what is missing, which is the real knowledge. And that's why he mentions that the fiqh at the time of Rasulullah in the early times, it was not the meaning of the fiqh to know the rules of jurisprudence on different matters of ibadat, for example, or mu'amalat, of the worship, of dealing. This was not considered as a fiqh. The fiqh was considered a full understanding, a proper understanding of the religious matters altogether, understanding the reality of this world, understanding of reality of the hereafter, and understanding the message of Quran, and all those things was considered as fiqh. As it is mentioned in Quran, the word fiqh is never mentioned as a rule, or in the Sunnah, it's not mentioned as a ruling on some aspects. It was always meant to be the proper understanding of the truth and reality. That's what fiqh means. And that's then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Quran, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. قُلُوب لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts, but they don't understand with it. They don't realize in the reality. They say. So that's what it is called. It's not about the ruling of some certain issues. Similarly, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua for Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu. When he said, اللهم فقهه في الدين وعلمه التأويل. Oh Allah, give him the understanding of the deen. So that deen means the realization of the whole deen. It's understanding about the akhirah, about Allah, and all those things, and then understanding of the message of Quran. So that's what was fiqh. It was not this just having the rulings. So that's why he said that this is what he made him write this book, is that the people have turned away and have basically, they are understanding, have a very narrow understanding of the deen, of the fiqh, whereas it has a broad aspect, and that's the aspect which is missing, is more important, because that's on which the real success lies, about knowing Allah, knowing hereafter, and sincerely working in that direction. So this is what is missing. So that's why he mentions the reason for writing this work and named it Ihya Ulumuddin, because the Uloom of Deen has become very limited, restricted to something, whereas the Deen is very vast, and the most aspects of the Deen have been almost ignored or marginalized. So that's why he said he wanted to write this book, and he named it Ihya Ulumuddin. So now, when we know about this basic reason, or let us say what he explains about writing this book, then he also mentions about the way in which he has structured it, and then he gives a reason why he is structured in this way. So these are the two things which I will talk also now about it, and that is that he says that seeing this is the condition, so he wrote this book, Ihya Ulumuddin, and he has divided this book into 4, you can say, sections, or 4 categories, and has made it like quarters. The first quarter, and the second quarter, and the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. That's how he has arranged it. And in this arrangement, he has the first quarter is about the names of these quarters, the first quarter, and in each of these quarters, he has 10 books. That means 10 topics. 10 topics. So 10 books. So the first one is the quarter of, you can say, worship, Rubul Ibadat, and then Rubul Adat, and then Rubul Muhalikat, and then Rubul Munjiyat. What are they? The quarter of, you can say, the quarter of worship, and then the quarter of social practices. This is the second one. And the third is the quarter of Muhlikat, means the destroyers, if you want. It's translated, the destroyers. That means the destructive character traits. Those who will destroy a person's, you can say, fate, the person's destiny. So who will lead to a bad destiny, to a destructive destiny. So that is the destructive traits, as I have said it, the quality in a person. So these are called muhlikat. Muhlik, something that destroys. So muhlikat, those who are destroyers, you can say. So rubu' al-muhlikat. And in this, they are the actually character traits that are destructive, and they destroy the person, and they will end up in the worst place of destruction, which is hell. So this is so what are those traits? That's he will deal in them. And then he has the fourth quarter, which is munjiyat. That means the savior, or the rescuers, the character traits which will rescue the person, that will rescue the person from hell, that will save the person. They are saviors or rescuers. So these are those character traits which are mentioned on that fourth quarter. So this is how we are destroyed. Now in each one there are names. I can probably read those names, but you will gradually know it. Kitab al-Ilm, Kitab al-Qawaid al-Aqaid, and so on. So the first one, which is Rubu' Ibadat, in which he starts with the first book, 10 books in it. The first is the Kitab al-Ilm, the book of knowledge. The second is Kitab Qawaid al-Aqaid, the fundamentals or foundations of faith. So these are the two ones which are actually, in my opinion, they are not just introduction or these two. They are introduction to this part of Ibadat of the 10 books. The first 2 books are like an introduction to the subject, but in fact it is an introduction to the whole book in a way, because Kitab al-Ilm and Kitab Qawaid al-Aqaid. So that means the knowledge and the foundations of faith. Importance of the knowledge, what is, and he goes further and says the knowledge which is useful and the knowledge which is not useful, and this might be even harmful, you see. And then who are the ulama of akhirah, who are the ulama of dunya. He goes in detail in those things, but this is Kitab al-Ilm, because the whole thing is based on knowledge. The deen is based on knowledge of how to spend the life on this earth, and also the knowledge of the hereafter and with the way of success in the hereafter. So that's why Kitab al-Ilm can be considered as not only to this first quarter as a starting point, but for the whole book. Similarly, Kitab al-Aqaid, you know that all the acts and deeds depend on the belief and faith. If the person doesn't have the right faith, everything is just multiplied by 0, becomes null and void. So it becomes 0, or maybe even harmful, negative. So that's why Kitab al-Aqaid, Kitab al-Ilm and Kitab al-Aqaid, they are not only foundations for Ibadat, for all the rest. And then he has in this Ibadat, Kitab Asrar al-Tahara, Asrar al-Salat, Asrar al-Zakat, Asrar. So as I mentioned before, all the things which are mentioned in Islam, you see the pillars of Islam. And here he is not giving the rulings of what are the faraid in Salat, what are the wajibat in Salat, what are the not like that. But that's why he has mentioned it. Asrar al-Zakat. That means Asrar means the secret, means in-depth meaning. What are the benefits and how to perform the Salat, that we acquire those benefits which Allah has put in Salah, and similarly in Zakat and fasting and Hajj and in Tilawah of Quran. So these are all chapters by chapters. And about Azkar and Da'wat, that means supplications and remembrance of Allah and so on. So this is, and certain awrat, certain Azkar or supplications at certain times and so on. So this is all about the Ibadat. And then we have Mu'amalat, which I translated as social manners or social practices. They are the practices, like for example, in this he has Adab al-Aql, Adab al-Nikah, Adab al-Ahkam al-Kasb. That means all those different things in 10 chapters again. That means I'm just mentioning these few here. For example, the manners of eating, the manners of marriage, the manners of earning, the rulings about earning, the laws, regulations, rules, about earning. And Kitab al-Halal wal-Haram, what are prohibited things, what are permitted and what are prohibited, and so on. So there are 10 books in this, and then he goes to the next, which I said, for us it is the most important to go into that part. And that's why, as I have mentioned before, I'll try to go with Kitab al-Ilm and Qawaid al-Aqaid from this year, and then we'll move to the third book, which is about Muhlikat. That means the destroyers, that means the character traits which will destroy a person's destiny and a person's ultimate ending. So that's what are the destroyers. And then in that he begins again with the two books which are foundation of all the rest of the book. As I mentioned, the rest of these two last two books, the Kitab al-Muhlikat and Kitab al-Munjiyat, or Rubu al-Muhlikat and Rubu al-Munjiyat, that means the quarter of the destructors, destructive character traits, and the quarter, the last one, the fourth quarter, is the quarter of the saviors or the rescuers. That is the character trait which will rescue and save the person. So that is here. This is considered. I consider this first two books here in the Kitab al-Muhlikat, the third quarter, can be considered as the basis for the rest of the book, half of the book. That means all of Muhlikat and all of Munjiyat. And what is these two books? What are these two books? Kitab Ajaib al-Qalb. Sharh means explanation of the wonders of the Qalb. And Qalb, we'll have to learn about it. What is Qalb? Qalb, actually, if you translate in English, you'll say the heart. So, explanation about the wonders of the heart. And then he has Kitab Riyadat al-Nafs. That means the disciplining the nafs, the soul. How to discipline the soul. This is here about Kitab Riyadat al-Nafs. These two books are foundation for the rest of this part, which is related to Tazkiyah mostly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And what is Tazkiyah? As I have said before, it is the process to reach the state of Ihsan. That is what we will see here, how these books are now arranged. So this is what I just wanted to say in short about the structure of the books, and then we'll go into it. Just today, to conclude, I'll mention this part particularly, where he's explaining the Ajaib al-Qalb, that means the wonders of the heart. It doesn't mean the heart, the physical heart. It means an ability which Allah has connected somehow with the heart. And those are the abilities of the heart. And he will explain in that part when we go there. He will explain about the four topics which are necessary for disciplining the nafs, the soul, and for healing and polishing the heart. Curing the heart from certain diseases. The heart gets diseases, and those are many diseases of the heart, and how to remove and cure them. And then the nafs has some weaknesses, you can say, some desires which are destructive, and how to tame that nafs, how to have a control over that nafs. So that is the part, and he will explain us about these four terms we mentioned as the abilities which we have been given, like what is nafs, what is qalb, what is ruh, and what is aql. These four things he will define it here in that part, and they are very important to understand properly, to understand the subject of Tazkiyah. And Tazkiyah, again, as I mentioned before, this is actually the objective of sending the prophets. The Tazkiyah of the nufus of human beings. Tazkiyah. And that's why, and today I'll conclude with this, Tazkiyah is, in one word, if success is mentioned in the book of Allah, in Quran, in one word, success, then it is by tazkiyah. Other places you see iman and amal salih, you see والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا. Similarly about آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, you see آمنوا بالله واليوم الآخر وعملوا الصالحات, always they are thinking. Similarly قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون, not only يصلون, that means they don't. It mentions that the success ones are those who are believers, the first is the belief, and then comes salah and khushu in salah and so many other things. But in one word, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. So Shams, which I started this today with the talk, Allah mentions about the soul, how He created it, how He perfected it, and then instilled in it, inspired in it, its good and bad, the evil and good. And the one who purifies it is success. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Only in one word. أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. So this is in one word if it is mentioned. So imagine that everything is in it. So how is that? That we will understand inshallah gradually. And the heart is the focus of it. Heart and nafs. These are the qalb and nafs. These are the two important aspects. Qalb, extremely important. As Rasulullah mentioned, that in the body there is a part. إِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ مُضْغَةً إِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ وَإِذَا فَسَدَتْ فَسَدَ الْجَسَدُ كُلُّهُ أَلَا وَهِيَ الْقَلْبُ. In the body there is a part. There is a piece of, you can say, flesh if you want. Or if it, although it doesn't refer to that physical heart. If it is healthy, then the whole body is healthy. If it is sick, if it is bad, then the whole body will be bad. So that's why he started there with the qalb and with the tahzeel of nafs. So, alhamdulillah, I think we covered some of these things, important aspects, and general overview of the book and how it is structured. And then we'll gradually go one by one, inshallah. As I mentioned, we'll go to the Kitab al-Ilm or Kitab al-Aqaid, Qawaid al-Aqaid, and then we'll go to the destroyers, and then once we finish that, then we'll go to the saviors. So that's how it is, all of it, inshallah, and hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes from us all the diseases of the heart and purifies our souls, because He is the one who can purify the soul. And we wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increases the light of Iman in our hearts and makes us among those whom He loves.